Hello, welcome. My name is Halldór Þórður.
I am Þórður Hans.
And we have worked together on a few interactive installations and like was introduced, we are the art duo Stabli. It's somewhat like our band name or something.
Yeah, it means stack in English.
I'm gonna begin by telling you a little bit about myself. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science, a BS in CS, or a bullshit degree in Counter-Strike, like I like to call it. And I work as a freelance audio and an art programmer, but also do my fair share of websites and whatnots. My second job is as a musician. I compose music, and I also am in a band called Sigur, which you should totally check out if you haven't already. And then I also collaborate with other musicians, currently with Ólafur Arnalds on a new generative robotic piano project.
Woo.
Some of my work is most notably the Poco Apollo. It's a generative music piece, and it's written in JavaScript. It uses the photos taken during the moon landings back in the 60s and 70s as an input to a musical engine and creates sort of soundscapes for the images, so you can flick through the images in a random order and listen to ambient music that is being generated in the browser. And another project is the Infinite String Quartet, which is a modular string quartet written by my brother Úlfur Eldjárn, who is a composer. And we created like an interactive version of it that runs in the browser, and you can select modules or clips from the string quartet and arrange them in a 3D space around you and create your very own version. You can play for hours in creating creepy string quartet music with this. And yeah, then the project I'm working on with Ole, here we are contemplating how to make it sound more like a flower, you know, artists. Yeah, that is being released very soon.
I am Þórður. I am merely a developer. I also have a BS degree, but no joke about it. I work for the local contracting company Gangverk. And I'm also going to use the opportunity to talk about some of my projects, since I have this platform. One recent one I did, this is a vegan Chrome extension. Woo! So it basically takes all non-vegan words, meaty words, and replaces them. Here we have bacon, and that gets replaced to Kermit's wife of 40 years. Then recently, just earlier this month, me and Halldór, we did another Harpa project using the façade outside. This was done for the foundation Go Red, and this basically a giant heart projected over Reykjavík, where the input is users' heartbeat, heart rate.
Yeah, so let's talk about Paint Splatter. It's an interactive installation where you can participate on your phone. And the simplest way to describe it is that it's a giant shared digital canvas made out of Harpa's huge LED facade. And anyone with access to internet and a smart device or a computer can interact with this canvas by splashing virtual paint on it, which then drips straight down or sideways depending on wind, direction and force. Take it away, Þórður.
Yes, so when you're creating interactive art, it's really important that the user input is simple and rewarding. In this piece, we utilize the fact that most people like vandalizing, especially without any consequences. So anonymously splashing paint on Iceland's most expensive building seemed like a pretty rewarding and simple way to be an outlet for that kind of behavior. For the first few days, we had thousands of visits, both from people all over the world, and some people standing outside in the storm, splashing for hours. The reason why it became so popular is how interactive it is. The fact that by pressing a small area on your phone results in a giant blob visible to all participants from all over the world is the key to making this all work. It's also pretty visibly pleasing. The blobs have a well-defined look, and the user input is greatly limited. This way, we could avoid making this look like a giant shared Microsoft Paint document. We could also avoid mankind's most drawn figure on any shared platform, the phallic symbol.
And how we built this thing, the design process was very straightforward. It just started with conceptual sketches on paper, like all good ideas start. And the whole concept was then thoroughly determined before we started coding anything. So that helped us really keep things in scope, and we did one thing well, I believe. Next step was doing some web mockups, just to get a gist of how the animation would look like. And I'm going to show you a code pen I did here.
This is not the code pen.
No, this is my home. This is where I live. I used to keep this on my screen. Yeah, here it is. Here's the first, like, somehow crappy interactive, and with input parameters, how it would leak. Yeah, just to get a sense of the rendering and main obstacles. This took like 30 minutes to do. So and it was so good to have this with the project proposal. Okay, back to the presentation. The biggest unknown factor in the whole project was how to render stuff on the light facade of Harpa, but fortunately it had been done before, so we just got access to some Node.js rendering server code written by Owen Hindley, which we could fork and adapt to our taste. And the networking part was also pretty straightforward. We just used Socket.io and set up a small app on an Heroku instance that handles all the events to and from users. Like, you press and make a blob and it sends the event to all connected participants. And it also contains some rudimentary game logic and input sanitizing and event throttling, like you would do. So, yes, when we set it all up, we faced some real-world problems.
Since the render server had to be located in the basement with the rest of the LED controllers, that meant we had to go up and down endlessly in our feedback loop. And this is a video of one of those times. But it was a great physical exercise, like a good contrast.
And we also got lost few times. Like, there are thousands of, Harpa is like Hogwarts school.
Yeah.
It's almost always changing, and
I think there are a lot of people like stuck down there.
Yeah, it probably is, like a small population there by now.
Yeah, and since this was already online, we wanted to allow more people to participate. So we decided to set up a live stream, and with a very limited budget, we borrowed a phone, and we kind of duct taped it to the ceiling of the hotel lobby next, across from Harpa. This worked out great. We got a lot of traction on Reddit, but pretty soon people started complaining about the tourist bus that was always blocking the view, like every half hour or so. And also the staff at the hotel, they weren't that pleased with this unidentified phone that at some point was maybe possibly broadcasting their conversations through the internet.
Yeah, and we also encountered some problems with deploying the render server here in Harpa, because We had to connect our computer to 6 unmarked Ethernet cables through a selection of routers and adapters, which had to be done in correct order for it to work. It was most definitely not a very atomic deployment process, and felt almost like programming the ENIAC or making punch card programs.
So yes, we had also become like a small TV station. So
Yeah.
this was
We had to fulfill our duties as a 24/7 live TV station. Did you already mention the main complaint from the Reddit users?
what's that?
So there was a tourist
Yeah.
tour bus, yeah.
You're not even listening to me.
And then we got spammed. It was bound to happen. Somebody found a way to circumvent our rate limiting. Oh no! And why am I even telling you this? All programmers and JavaScript. And then we got like properly hacked. Now this is actually a very funny story because somebody found a way to override our color scheme. We had like a very limited color scheme. You could not draw black, for instance, so you could not like clear the screen or something like that. But somebody found a way to override it and was suddenly able to draw arbitrary buffers of images by just splatting paint very fast with a for loop. And we knew this was a possibility from the start, but didn't have the resources to prevent it, and except for some basic rate limiting and exponentially increasing backup periods. But this was actually a very fun challenge, and war was upon us. Iceland is very small, and the communities here are even smaller. And the proof for that is that I just got on Messenger and guessed who the hacker was. And this was nota bene before the hacker started writing his name on the façade. And I was right. The hacker was my former computer game programming teacher at university, and he's also a programmer at CCP. And the only person in Iceland I knew that would be able to do such a thing and invest the time to do it properly. So we could immediately recognize his way of doing the hacking because it was very professionally done. We approached him, and after a few hours of negotiations, he surrendered and told us all about how he did it. And he even sent us all the code and a lot of comments on our code, which was very fun to read. So he was able to like draw arbitrary buffers with paint, and this is from his code where he has like neatly organized his name in a proper two-dimensional array. And he wrote a whole rendering server that was running on his computer that spammed our server with paint blob events and enabled him to do this. So he was like rendering on a rendering server on a rendering server, because we all like rendering servers, right? But we made it harder for him. We just increased the rate limiting a bit and added some extra throttling, and without degrading the experience of the normal non-spamming user. And this fight was ongoing throughout the duration of the display. He also was able to avoid, because the paint leaks, and if you draw something, it won't stay there forever because it gets, the paint leaks and somebody else paints over it. Mm-hmm. But he added a skewing factor he could tune to his taste to be able to create like very straight images. And then we added random noise to it to decrease the resolution of what this hacker was able to draw. And this is still in the code. You see it if you press the Harpa if you splat paint, you can see that it
doesn't come in the center, like where
it doesn't come exactly in the center of where you clicked. And also, it's totally on concept because splatting paint, like with some paint blood, that's a very unprecise art. So yeah, it's just a part of the concept.
Yes. If you spend some time in Iceland, you quickly learn that the weather here is quite unpredictable. And when we did this the first time, which was in 2016, there was basically a crazy storm throughout the whole time it was up. And that was a great way to show off the feature that we were using wind force and wind direction to render. So we just looked on the bright side. There weren't a lot of people like outside trying this out, more people on the internet. But the year after, we set it up again, and the weather was way better. Just nice weather and almost no wind at all, which proved problematic because every time there was absolutely no wind, our render server crashed. Because we were somewhere in our calculations, we were dividing by a 0. And for the first time this happened, me and Halldór, we were gonna be on live television. And this happened like 5 minutes before that happened. As you can see in this picture, here's the mayor in 2016, loads of wind. You can see his hair, it's crazy. And 2017, this is like a frozen render server, absolutely no wind. Me and Halldór somewhere in the back having a panic attack. But we somehow got through the interview with like demonstrating how this worked without it actually working at all. And nobody seemed to notice, which was a pretty good thing. Yes, we learned a few lessons through this whole process. First being that we should avoid at any means any ribbon cutting ceremonies by politicians with like huge scissors, especially when it's on live television. Secondly, you should always allow for the weather, even when you're writing code. Even if it has nothing to do with weather, you should do it, especially here in Iceland.
And it's always fun when your work is worth hacking, at least when it's not done maliciously and while it's entertaining. This piece revolves around the concept of vandalism and that everybody gets their say. Everybody can participate. So programmers with the programming skills, they can of course participate. But if you intend to do so, please behave yourselves. We don't have the money to fight you. So, thank you so much for listening. And the piece is accessible at paint.jsconf.is or just paint.is. It's been a pleasure talking here, and we would like to know if any of you had any questions. We are happy to answer. Yeah, the question there. Yeah. The insights of how many users and how many users at the same time have used this. The night when it went live on Reddit, we got like, I think 7,000 hits over a short period of time. And that was after we set up the live streaming cam.
Yeah.
So even if you were abroad, you could splat paint and see a live stream of it actually happening.
Yeah. For some reason, there wasn't like a huge spike at one point. It was like pretty even. I don't know why.
Yeah, and the log file from the server was around 300 megabytes, if that tells you anything. Any more questions?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did one a couple of weeks ago, which we told you about briefly. It's we connected a heart rate sensor to heart animation on front of Harpa, so you could come up to the second floor and make it sense your heartbeat, and then ripples would form that blended nicely on the light facade.
Yeah, and we allowed for 0, but no one had 0 heart rate.
Sorry?
No, it was it was taken down.
The webcam was taken down because the hotel manager thought we were spying on some guests at the hotel.
And our friend needed his phone back as well.
Yeah. Poor guy.
But if you have a phone, you want to like borrow us.
We'll take care of it. Just ask away if you have any questions.
I think so. That's all.
What is the timeout? Is like 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 8 seconds?
What?
No, okay. It was a
silly
TCP joke. Sorry, I'm very sorry. Thank you so much for listening.